The Ford Mustang. This is one of those nameplates that really needs no introduction. It's been around in the US for nearly 60 years, and Ford is claiming that for the last 7 years, this has been the best-selling sports coupe in the world. Therefore, when an all-new version is introduced, it's a really big deal, and today I'm at a studio just outside of Detroit, Michigan with the all-new 2024 Ford Mustang. It's now known internally as the S650, it's now in its 7th generation, and Ford is saying it's returning with a choice of a Turbo 4 or a 5-liter V8 engine. So you guys have been super excited. I know a lot of enthusiasts out there have been waiting. I've been waiting. Let's go ahead and finally take a look at the all-new Ford Mustang. So the current generation Mustang, known as the S550, has been around since 2014. So obviously it was time for Ford to give the Mustang a full redesign. And we've been waiting a long time because a lot of people were speculating that Ford was going to go all electric for this new version. Well, I'm happy to report that this Mustang here doesn't even offer a hybrid powertrain, nor are they going to offer an electric version. Ford is basically claiming that this is going to be the last of the internal combustion engine Mustangs until an all-electric version shows up sometime by the next decade. But since we've finally got the new S650 in the flesh to show you guys what this is like, let's go ahead and talk about the styling, because Ford says they wanted this car to have an edgier, more sophisticated, more modern look, and it definitely has a lot of cues here that I'm really liking on this design. First of all, this particular one that I'm showing you is a GT performance version. It's going to be available in EcoBoost, in a premium package, and a GT base and a GT premium. This is the GT with the performance package. You're going to know it's a GT from several new styling elements. First of all, Ford is saying that the GTs have a unique front clip. You can see the grille is completely different. In past Mustangs, the GTs used to just have a slightly different grille insert. Now, as you can see, the grille is gloss black. All the GTs will have a gloss black grille along with a gloss black hood extractor. And then you can see here there are these two little nostrils to the side of the actual hood. Those nostrils are there because it's functional. This now has a dual air intake system for the V8. So it was necessary again to allow engine to pass through. A lot of the other vents that you're seeing are also functional. There are some functional vents along the front underbody of the vehicle. And then over here, as you can see on this area, it's actually closed off because Ford says that there is a washer fluid reservoir behind that. They decided to close it off because you didn't want to have to see some ugly washer reservoir bottle back there. But on the driver's side, it is actually a functional heat extractor vent for the oil cooler. The headlights, as you can see, very traditional look that you expect from Mustangs. You have the signature 3 light LED. You still have sequential LED turn signals. You have LED low and high beams. No fog lights on the vehicle, but you can see there's like this new brow that goes along the front fascia. It gives the Mustang kind of a wider appearance. Keep in mind, this is the GT Performance. It's going to have a slightly more aggressive front fascia. I really like it in this particular spec. This is a new color for 2024. It's called Vapor Blue Metallic. It looks almost kind of grayish in this light. It's a very modern color. It's very much trendy. A lot of manufacturers are seeming to be offering a color like this for all their vehicles. Now underneath the hood, sadly I can't pop the hood for you. We have a choice of either a 2.3-liter EcoBoost turbocharged engine. Ford says it's going to be more powerful and more efficient than the last year. And then of course there's this model here, which continues to use Ford's 5-liter Coyote naturally aspirated V8. Now sadly, I don't have power figures just yet for either engines, but you can take your pick between either a 6-speed manual or a 10-speed automatic, and Ford is claiming that this V8 is now in its 4th generation. It's got dual throttle bodies like I mentioned earlier. It's going to be the most powerful version of the Coyote V8. How much more power? Well, we can only speculate because the previous generation made between 450 to 470 horsepower. I'm going to suspect that Ford's going to be targeting the upper end, especially for the base GT. Maybe the performance package will add a little bit more power, and then when they eventually come out with other versions, Ford will probably try to get closer and closer to that 500 horsepower mark, which would make this engine a 100 horsepower per liter motor that's also naturally aspirated. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the side profile, because Ford says that this Mustang is riding on a modified version of the S550 chassis, which means we've got a fully independent suspension. You can see they also made the side profile a little bit more aggressive. It's actually, Ford says, about the same size. It rides on the same 107-inch long wheelbase. Its overall length is around 188 inches long, so this is not quite as big as a Dodge Challenger, but it's a little bit larger versus a Chevrolet Camaro. The wheels you can see on this particular one, Ford is going to offer a choice between either a 17 or a 19 or a 20-inch wheel, which is going to be optional. This GT with the performance package has a black finish 19-inch wheel. You can see it's riding on 255/40 R19 Pirelli P0 summer tires. The backs are a little bit wider. They're 275s. And then you can see the brakes massive. These are almost 16-inch diameter rotors, 6-piston Brembo calipers in the front, 4-piston in the rear, and then you can see here the caliper here is actually painted in grabber blue. That's a new color option that you can get in addition to the red and black painted caliper. The grabber blue with the vapor blue here, it's just a really great color combination. I love how Ford is kind of offering that customization. They're really known for that, of course, with most of the Mustang models. Now again, you can tell it's a GT because of the 5-liter badge here. Only the GTs will include that. There's also a black side mirror and then a black painted roof. Ford, I don't believe Ford still doesn't offer a sunroof on the Mustang. If you want the sun in your hair or the wind in your face and the sun beating down on you, you can still buy this vehicle as a convertible or a coupe like this model here. And then looking over here at this profile, Ford says that they actually lowered the belt line to give you slightly better visibility, and they also made these haunches here a little bit wider. This kind of gives me a little bit more like Dodge when I stare at this from the side profile, but you can't argue that the fact that this looks more aggressive, and that's kind of something that Ford wanted to do with his all-new Mustang. Now moving over to the rear of the vehicle, this is where I find the look to be slightly more controversial. I mean, you still have the signature look here with the 3-bar tail lights, which by the way, all of them have sequential turn signals in the front and in the rear. But you can see here, there's this area here where it almost kind of like has a boomerang shape for the tail light. It almost has like somebody like did a karate chop here. It makes the rear look a lot more aggressive. It looks good, however, with this wing spoiler, this pedestal spoiler, which I saw the car without the spoiler. It looks totally naked without it. So my recommendation, get it with this configuration because it looks really aggressive. It actually almost looks slightly wider to the naked eye, but Ford says again, the dimensions are pretty much the same as the previous generation. You can see there's a new badge over here. It says GT, but it actually has performance inscripted in the top portion of the badge here, which is a new addition. It's gonna again remind people that you have a slightly more special GT. You can see there's your backup camera. The rear diffuser here also is slightly more aggressive. You have your reverse lights over there, and then the exhaust system. Now Ford is going to offer several different exhausts on this vehicle. They're also going to offer this new feature called remote rev. That's right, if you have the key fob on you, you can actually push a button on the fob, and that's going to make the vehicle rev up to basically piss off your neighbors or show off the sound of your 5-liter V8. Ford says that you can get the remote rev on the EcoBoost as well, but you have to get it with the active exhaust. All the GT Performance are going to come with that. I actually can start this up, so we'll go ahead and start it up so you guys can hear what it sounds like real quick. We get it, it's very loud. So that V8 engine definitely sounds good. I'm going to miss that sound whenever Ford decides to come out with an all-electric version. Now, I also want to point out that remote rev feature allows you to basically rev it up to around 5,000 RPM. The computer will do that. It'll rev it between 4 to 5 times. Now, there are safety measures in check if the computer thinks that the engine's not warm enough, and it won't do that for you. But again, it's a great feature to show off or again, to piss off your neighbors. Now, let's go ahead and show you guys the trunk capacity. Now, I don't have final figures just yet for the actual trunk size, but Ford says that they enlarged the opening slightly. And the old Mustang, they're claiming, had one of the largest trunks in the segment, although Dodge may argue with that with the Challenger, considering how big it was. But you can see here, this trunk here looks pretty similar to the previous generation. The seats do fold down in a 60/40 manner. And then if you look underneath here, you can see no temporary spare, but you do get a fix-a-flat kit, and there's a little bit of storage in there. So that's a pretty good and practical size trunk. So while some of you may be complaining that Ford didn't do too much to make the new Mustang look different on the outside, moving into the interior, you can't argue here because the interior has been completely redesigned from the previous generation. And getting inside and shutting the door, it has a pretty similar solid sounding thunk as the previous generation, which doesn't surprise me. It's built on the same architecture underneath. Now, this particular one here that I'm showing you, being the GT Performance, includes these Recaro bucket seats. Now, these seats you can see are kind of they're colored in like a slate gray with a two-tone. They're really aggressively bolstered. It's perforated leather. You have heated and ventilated seats, which is nice. These seats themselves are manual, but the fact that Ford offers heat and ventilation on the Recaro seats is definitely new. You used to never be able to pair those two together if you guys went for the Recaro seats. You can also get, of course, a standard seat. Ford is going to offer a choice between a cloth, an Active X, which is their fake leather, and then real leather if you guys go for the highest upgraded trims, but you can see here, this interior has this kind of digital cockpit theme. Ford says that they got rid of the dual cowl design. So for those of you who liked that of the previous generation, sorry, it's gone. Ford says that dual cowl design really limited the tech team in being able to put a larger screen in this car. And as you can see, the screens are gorgeous. You've got a 12.4-inch full digital cluster here and a massive 13.2-inch display here. Now, this is running on the Sync 4 software, which is the latest. It has over-the-air updates, but it also had its graphics were redone by Unreal Engine. That's actually a gaming software company that redid the graphics, and I'll show you guys that in a moment when we talk about the drive mode selector. But these screens here, it's made of one continuous piece of glass. It's a curved display. It's angled a little bit toward the driver. As you can see, it's a huge improvement over the smaller 8-inch screen that we had in Sync 3 in the previous Mustang. You also had a digital display in the old one, but you can see a lot of the fonts, the graphics just look so much better. It's far more modern. And then when we talk about the interior materials, Ford says they upgraded that. This one here is the higher trim, so you can see the upper part of the door panel is a soft touch injection molded plastic. You have Bang & Olufsen stereo available in this car. You have leather along the entire door panel here. A lot of the switchgear looks like it's carried over from the previous Mustang. The windows are one touch up and down for the two front windows. No memory seats obviously on this one because it's not power. And then the steering wheel you can see is adjusting tilt and telescoping, which is nice. And then it's been completely redesigned this year. Now I do want to point out that the plastics in this vehicle, you can see on the airbag cover in particular, Ford used to have like an animal skin textured injection molded plastic. Now they've gone with this material that they call white noise. It feels a little bit more, to me it feels a little bit cheaper, but they're saying this is a more modern look to it. I love the new steering wheel design with the running horse, the flat bottom design. Ford used to not have that on regular Mustangs. You can see the grip itself for the 9 and 3 is just thicker. You have some carbon fiber looking trim here along with your buttons for your adaptive cruise control, which Ford says is available with all of their Ford Copilot 360s, although I don't believe you can get Blue Cruise in this vehicle. And then you can see here controls for your audio information. The interior itself just kind of fits me like a glove. It's kind of very driver focused, which again reminds you that this is a driver's car. Now in terms of the dashboard here, you can see it's got more of that faux carbon fiber. You have real stitching here on the lower part of the dash, which is nice. I believe Ford has never done with the stitching here. Up here on the upper portion, you can see it has that white noise textured soft touch injection molded plastic with the Mustang logo over there. The Bang & Olufsen stereo. I believe this car has either 12 speakers in here. I haven't had a chance to hear it, but Ford says it's much improved over the previous generation. Down over here in the center console, you can see my tester has a 6-speed manual. Hashtag save the manuals. The shift throws feel really good. They're actually nice and short. They have a nice satisfying click. And then when you go into reverse, you basically have to manhandle it all the way over to the left and then push over, although for some reason the backup camera wasn't turning on. The clutch itself definitely feels heavy, but it also has a nice short travel, which I like. I'm not going to get a chance to drive this vehicle obviously just yet. Over here you can see there's also a wireless phone charging pad. And then over here, Ford has definitely simplified the buttons and switches. The old Mustang had those kind of toggles that you can get. Now we kind of just have this touch sensitive panel here that allows you to get to shortcuts like your traction control, your drive mode selector, auto start stop. There's your push button start, and then you still have a volume knob. But if you're looking for the climate control, you can see that's now in the screen. It's in this lower part here that stays put. So that's kind of good. This is very similar to the Mustang Mach-E. You can see here are the graphics that I was telling you about by Unreal Engine. It basically allows you to kind of adjust a certain graphics. You can also spin around the car, which is really cool. This reminds me a lot of a video game. And you can even go to like your track apps here. You can activate the line lock, launch control, rev match, the lap timer, braking performance, all that stuff. It's very much like Gran Turismo almost. It's very, very upscale modern. This is going to appeal to a lot of the younger nerds out there who've always wanted to get a Mustang. It reminds you a lot of a video game. And then over here on the screen, you can see it does have all your usual sources like wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, over-the-air updates like I mentioned. You have embedded factory GPS. But really when you push the horse logo here and go into this is where you're going to really be able to customize the Mustang to your liking. I also want to show you guys this other neat trick, cluster. When you go to the cluster theme here, you can see there are several different cluster themes. This is the normal looking display. It's very similar to the 2-dial look Ford decided to go with a copper look as opposed to the ice blue. There's also a sport mode here that changes the way it looks there. There's a track that gives you a tack basically front and center. There's a comm screen for those of you who don't want all that stuff. And then look at this one. This is called Fox Body. It basically looks like the gauge cluster from an 87 to 93 Mustang, and it even lights up green at night. So again, for those of you who love your old Fox Body, the new one kind of gives you an homage, the throwback, and I think it's a really cool feature that Ford, again, was taking advantage of the heritage of this vehicle. I think that's a great thing. Over here on the center console, you can see there's a lot of leather stitching over here. And then I want to point out one thing, this parking brake. It looks like a traditional e-brake where you pull, right? So Ford decided to leave a traditional e-brake. For a lot of you old school people out there, mechanical handbrake, no. This is actually an electronic e-drift brake is what Ford calls it. When you go into the track apps here, you can see there's an option for drift brake. This is only on the performance package models. And this lever here, when you pull up on it, it actually returns back to center. You use this to literally do J-turns in this car and pull this, and it'll automatically apply the brakes, and it'll do it in the correct speed that allows you to do those power tailgating slides or tail out slides in this vehicle. And when you want to use it as a regular brake, you basically pull it up, it goes back to center. When you want to release the brake, you put your foot on the brake and then push down on that, and that will actually lower the parking brake. It's a really interesting design. I've never seen that before. Ford says it's a class exclusive feature. It's going to take some getting used to, but I think for those of you who want to learn how, or you're a novice at drifting, you want to learn how to do those J-turns, the fact that Ford did this really shows you this car is built by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. I think it's a great thing. Now over here you can see center console. It's pretty much very similar to the previous generation. You can see this center console area is covered with the same kind of leather stitching. With the stitching itself, Ford says the stitching is actually a little bit closer together and it's a little bit tighter. They say they wanted this interior to feel a lot more premium, and I think they've certainly done that. The glove compartment here, you can see it's not damped or lined with felt, but I will say that this is a very early pre-production car, so I'm not going to judge interior quality too much, but for a very early prototype, it's actually screwed together pretty well. Now there is a back seat back here, and I'm going to torture myself and get back there and show you guys what it's like. But as I climb back over here, first of all, to get back here, you pull on this lever here, and I'm surprised it didn't actually pull the seat forward. Now, there is a lever back here that I can pull, but that actually doesn't pull the seat forward. Again, very early prototype car, but just for kicks, I'll get back here and show you guys what the space is like. Now, this is my driving position over here. Oh, now the Mustang has never really been a great family car, but I have to say, for somebody who's 5'7", as you can see, my hair is literally touching the ceiling of this thing. Legroom back here, the old one had around 29 inches of legroom. I'd say this is pretty similar. Really, what your limiting factor is the headroom here. So somebody even my height, where I'm a shorter guy, has my head hitting the roof. I mean, I can sit back here and be relatively comfortable, but as soon as you hit a bump, which I suspect this one here is going to have a harsher ride, your head's going to go doing, basically right into the ceiling. So because we live in a world where electrification and self-driving cars are a thing that's coming in the near future, seeing something like an all-new Ford Mustang with a 5-liter V8, a 6-speed manual transmission, and a remote rev function that literally just makes noise at the touch of a button is a really refreshing new addition to the industry. And in fact, after seeing this new car in person, I have to say, when I first saw the photos of the new Mustang, there are certain elements about the rear that I wasn't quite sure of, but I have to say, in this Vapor Blue GT Performance Coupe configuration, it's a really superb looking vehicle. It looks aggressive, it looks modern, it's still instantly recognizable as a Mustang, and really the interior is the winner for me, because even though it doesn't have that traditional dual cowl design that Mustangs have had for years, that design also limited Ford interior designers to much smaller screens. It just didn't look very cohesive. This definitely has that kind of digital cockpit look that feels modern, that's going to appeal to, again, a younger generation of buyers who are really into the new Mustang, but it also should appeal to the older generation who really love the Mustang name as well, because this car still is instantly recognizable as a Mustang. It's going to give you some of the best-in-class performance, and even though I am slightly disappointed that Ford is not offering a hybridized option, we were really kind of guessing that they would do a hybrid V8. I am very excited to drive this model here, and I'm really excited to see what Ford's going to announce as the power figures. Now, in terms of pricing, I don't have final pricing just yet, obviously. The current generation Mustang starts at around $27,500 for the EcoBoost, add $5,000 for the premium package. The GTs were just under $40,000. Obviously, everything is getting more expensive, so I wouldn't be surprised to see an EcoBoost model starting at close to $30,000, while the GT starting at maybe a little over $40,000. That's my speculation. If I had to guess, this one here that we're staring at with all the extra options options that it has is probably closer to $55,000, $60,000, which again, it's getting expensive, but with the kind of performance, the kind of looks, the kind of raw style, visceral feel that you're gonna get with this car, the Mustang is definitely one of those new vehicles that enthusiasts are gonna have to pick up, because when Ford goes all electric, things like this are going to become a dime and a dozen. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Ford Mustang, this particular one here in a GT Performance spec. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.